Hello everyone, welcome once again to this video where I will take you through climate change risk management. Again, I want to mention that this is a continuation from my previous videos where I explain different components of climate change, causes of and impacts of climate change. My name is John Sekajugo. I'm a lecturer at Mountains of the Moon University in the Faculty of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences, the Department of Environment, Natural Resources and Tourism. So today I'm going to take you through climate change risk management. I will begin with a simple introduction into the climate-related hazards and the risks they pose, and then later I will take you through the different links between climate change and the risks and all the other exposed elements and how to deal with them. So again, I want to encourage you, if you have not watched my previous videos, look for them, watch them, because then they will introduce you and give you information on how we have been transiting from the different parts of climate change risk management to where we are now. So climate-related hazards, okay, for example, drought, floods, okay, sea level rise, landslides, okay, are increasing. They are on a rise with very big impacts on socio-economic development of society. So climate change risk management is one aspect of climate policy which involves decision making over the broader range of topics that relate to climate change risk. Okay, it includes all those different efforts, okay, that are aimed at understanding weather and climate events, as well as those approaches that can be used to manage the risks, and of course realizing those different opportunities that are related to the current climate variability and climate change. So those risks, understanding them and understanding their impacts, understand the exposed elements and everything are all component parts of the overall climate change risk management. So just to give you an idea in terms of definition, risk is the probability of occurrence of a potentially damaging event. Okay, in this case, the hazard. So the probability of it occurring is and affecting the elements exposed is what we are calling a battery risk. Okay, and climate risk management involves both risk assessment and risk reduction. So on one component part, before
I don't know.
Power?
Power gone. Yeah, that's why he was.
Okay. So climate change risk management involves both risk assessment and risk reduction. So to be able to have appropriate risk reduction measures, we need to assess first the level of risk, understand the climate itself, the kind of change we are having, what is exposed, what is likely to be affected, what is its vulnerability, what is its worth, the exposure, okay, the amount of exposure, what is it worth, for us to be able to determine the appropriate risk reduction measures. Okay, so to be able to manage and reduce these risks, the information on the spatio-temporal distribution of climate-related hazards, the exposed elements as I've talked about, their vulnerability is a prerequisite. We must first understand this. You cannot plan to reduce risk on something that you don't know. So climate risk assessment is very important and should be taken as an integral part of the overall risk management strategies. But before we go into details here, let me give you some of the climate change induced risks that should be of concern to us, especially those that are in Uganda like me. According to Hepworth, okay, a 2 degrees centigrade increase in temperature in Uganda is likely to reduce the suitability of coffee in various parts of the country. And if you look at this illustration here in this map, you will be able to see that on the left you have a map which is showing that actually the largest part of Uganda, especially the central part of Uganda and the south, the largest part of the south, is suitable for coffee growing. But he's showing on the right that if we experience a 2 degrees increase, okay, the biggest part of Uganda will lose the suitability. Okay, the productivity of coffee in the largest part of Uganda will go down. Now, this is very, very serious because we currently know that coffee growing and the export is one of the largest source of income for Uganda as a country, but also for individual households. Okay, it's one of the valuable crop, and it's one of the income generating crops. Okay, now if we see that actually a 2 degree increase, degree centigrade increase in temperature is likely to make almost the whole country unsuitable for coffee growing, should be a concern to us. Okay, we all see that the output of maize will reduce greatly if we have increases in temperature. Okay, some of the things we are already experiencing them, and this has also a very high risk on food security. We all know now increasingly people depend on maize. Just after it is ready in the garden, they start roasting it and cooking it for food. Then when it is harvested, they mill it and they pack it. We use it for posho, for porridge, and many others. Now, if the productivity and output of maize is also affected, then we are likely to have increase in food security issues. There are many other risks, and these include, of course, outbreak of strange pests and diseases. This is also already becoming a challenge in many parts of Uganda. Okay, there are many pests that are coming that are strange that we used not to have, and people don't know how to deal with. There are many diseases that are coming and breaking up across the country, and we don't know how to deal with them. And this is not only limited to Uganda, but even in other neighboring countries, in other countries where the temperatures are increasing, where the rainfall patterns are changing, we have these challenges also happening. So we have loss of lives and property as one of the other risks and problems that is coming from climate-related events like floods, like landslides. Now, for example, in Uganda, if you look at the Elgon region, the Rwenzori region, and some of the Kigezi highlands in Kabale, you know, many people suffering from landslides, suffering from floods, losing their lives, losing their buildings, the road infrastructure breaking down and the bridges. Recently I was in Kasese, the Nyamamba areas and the Nyamgasani areas. In the Bundubujo, you know, the Lamia River flooding frequently and breaking, of course, the bridges and taking people's houses. So all these challenges and risks are likely to increase if we do not understand the kind of risk we have as a result of climate change and try to develop ways of dealing with it, reducing the risk, mitigating the greenhouse gases, and also adapting our societal and environmental systems to some of these impacts of climate change. Of course, we know there is increase in water scarcity for both livestock and crop. When we have a prolonged dry spell, we have people walking long distances looking for water. We have people moving with their animals from one place to another looking for water. Okay, we have some of the animals dying. Some of you might still remember certain periods we have had animals, especially in the cattle corridor, dying because of lack of water, dying because of lack of enough pasture. So these are all climate-related risks that we need to understand and find ways of dealing with. Of course, understanding the climate change risk very well and being able to deal with it requires us to understand the links between climate change and the risk itself. Okay, the changes in various climate variables, of course, such as temperature and precipitation, are linked with several impacts of socio-economic and environmental systems. The ultimate risk can be directly to an individual, of course, like for example, losing a homestead, losing some of your gardens, but also it can be to a company. Okay, a company losing its property, losing its infrastructure, and all others. But again, it can be to a whole community losing adequate food supply, losing a road connection to the important health center or to an important trading center, of course, destroying farmlands and others. So it is very important for all people that are involved in agroecology, that are involved in natural resource management related things, that are involved in agriculture, to understand these links between climate change and the risks they impose on the different agroecological and environmental systems, on the different farms, on the different organizations, and be able to assess the level of risk, analyze and manage these risks if they are able to sustainably manage their systems, if we are able to sustainably implement our projects, and be able to withstand the shocks that are related to the climate change events. In this particular diagram, I illustrate these links, and I hope they can be able to help you on how to understand some of these links. On one hand, we have the climate variables, because when we talk of climate change, it's these variables that make up climate that change. The rainfall, the temperature, okay? And when is change now, we have now a change in the climate variables, okay? For example, you have more heavy rainfall, they are coming more erratic, then you start getting dry spells and others. Now, when these change, the variables change, you start getting these events, okay? The heavy rains and the rest. Now, when we get these events, they have impact, okay? Because they come either in terms of flooding, in terms of drought, bursting of riverbanks and the rest. Now, they have impacts, and therefore we need to understand what is impacted, what is exposed, what is likely to be affected, how is it likely to be affected, okay? What is its level of vulnerability, what is its adaptive capacity, okay? We need to understand all those things, and these will lead us into understanding the amount of risk, the level of risk. Could it be loss of lives, okay? Could it be loss of transport? If it is transport, to what extent will this transport be affected, okay? Having understood, of course, what is affected, what type of roads we have, how many we have, to what extent are they exposed, and then we can understand the amount of risk that we have and the kind of risk that we are dealing with. Is it loss of lives, connections to the blockage, due to blockages of roads, is it food insecurity, and many others. So these links will help us understand this and be able to deal with them, okay? So I want, if you have to deal with the risk, you should be able, and I want to encourage you to understand these links, because once you understand them, then you can ably plan for the risks, you can ably enhance the adaptive capacity of these systems, you can be able to build their resilience and be able to reduce the impact associated with the climate change related events. Okay, I want to leave this video at this, okay, and I want to encourage you to keep waiting for my next video where I will be taking you through now the real impact assessment and reporting related to climate change. Okay, but encourage your colleagues, I encourage you to keep watching this video, understand these components, read more about the components I've talked about, and be able to understand climate change risk in its totality, and be able in the end to deal with it, to plan on how to reduce it and manage the risk, so that we can build resilient systems, we can be able to adapt to these systems and learn to live with them. I thank you very much. I wait for you in my next video.